I have an important message for a select few. That's not all of you. This is for a select few of you guys that are listening or watching this. It's for trade business owners that have been around for a while. They understand the frustrations of marketing and being in control or not being in control. Guys, it's 2021 and many of you are marketing yourselves like it's the year 2000. Off the back of a global pandemic, we've seen huge shifts in the market with people turning to service providers they know, like, and trust. There's never been a better time to establish the tools and frameworks in your business to take advantage of these things. These things that will serve you not only now, but serve the business ongoing. Over at Tradie Web Guys, we've recently launched the Elevation program. It equips businesses with the tools and the programs required to successfully market themselves. It gives you tools to re-engage with your past and present clients whilst nurturing potential clients. It creates assets in your company's name with no proprietary licenses. You own these things 100%. It gives your business a huge head start on the search engines with advanced SEO, and it collates all of the programs and all the services you need into one neat little bundle, including things like web development, website management, email marketing, SEO, Google Ads, loads of different softwares, strategy, support, and a bunch of other things. After going through this program, you'll have all the tools you need to market your business ongoing. You'll have a huge head start in your marketing, and you'll also have a CRM so you can continue to build your database whilst engaging your current customers and re-engaging those customers that you've essentially forgotten about. Marketing tools that you need, and they'll all be in your control. You don't owe anyone anything. You'll be able to dial it up and down essentially as you see fit. So why is this an important time to talk about this? Guys, it's important to know a lot about a little and a little about a lot. Meaning, you want to be in control. You want to know enough to be dangerous. I'm not trying to give you more work here. Essentially, we'll set everything up for you, teach you the basics, and then it's all yours. It's complete transparency. You'll never grow a business past a certain point without marketing. Word of mouth will only ever get you so far. We've spoken about it on the podcast a load of times. At some stage, you need to invest in these things. This is the simplest and most affordable way to do it. For more information, head across to tradiewebguys.com.au/elevation, fill in the form, and let's make 2021 the year that you took control. Today's podcast has been proudly brought to you by Tradie Web Guys. Tradie Web Guys work with tradespeople only on their websites and marketing solutions to help them stand out from their competition. Everything from web design through to SEO, search engine marketing, content creation, you name it, guys. It is a customized solution for trade-based organizations, and it's fantastic. Head across to tradiewebguys.com.au/apply, fill in the form, and let's have a conversation.
Giving tradies and contractors around the globe the tools to run a modern business. You're listening to Toolbox Talks from the Site Shed. Now here's your host, Matt Jones.
Karalynn, welcome to the Site Shed podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
As I alluded to offline there, I've been reading your book and it's been terrifying me.
I know, and that's kind of the point, maybe if I can say it loud enough that people will understand that the first rule about subcontracts and contract in general is that there are no rules. And so you really need to read it and understand it before you sign it, because what you sign will be held against you.
From the Cromeens law firm, is that right?
Yes, sir.
The Cromeens, CROMEENS lawfirm.com is the website.
Right.
And you are a contracts lawyer, essentially. Right. And we're here in this little mini-series to talk about contracts in the construction industry. And yeah, your book is called Quit Getting Screwed. And I confess I'm only halfway through it, but I encourage everyone out there to check it out, because it's kind of one of those books where you're like, what? They can what? Every 5 minutes, I'm like, what? Crazy.
Is that real? Can that really happen that way?
My wife's like, shut up. I'm trying to sleep.
And honestly, all of those things I've learned because I've had a client go through it and learn the lesson the hard way. And every time I'm just shocked. It can happen that way. It can go that way. And so understand. And then here's the other thing too, is like you get a contract and it's not like it just says these dangerous provisions. It's hidden in legalese. So you really need someone to decipher it, tell you what it means, so that you can decide if you want to take the risk or not.
I've said this 1,000 times on the show. And I came from a plumbing background, and I worked in construction plumbing for a while, and I got screwed, same thing, by a builder. And essentially that's what got me out of it, which was kind of a blessing in disguise, to be honest. But I mean, there's been so many listeners out there that would be relating to this. I did want to clarify or quantify, I suppose, with this book. And obviously, and you allude to it a lot in the book, that it's geared to tax and law. But I feel like much of the principles apply throughout probably America and certainly globally.
Yeah, and they do. And actually, I'm open up now that I've gotten into this and realized that it's such a prevalent issue. There's really not many differences among the states, right? I can tell you this for sure. No state has this is what can and can't be in your contract.
Right.
I can't speak internationally, but I know definitely in America, there's no set of rules. And so whatever they put in there will be enforced. And I just read a contract yesterday from Colorado that had all of these same provisions.
Yeah.
And so it's global. And the other thing that I've done with this too is on the Subcontractor Institute. If you don't get enough from the book, I actually teach the 20 chapters in there, and it's completely free.
Right.
And there, when I can get into, because what I've really tried to do is make these concepts and bring them down to plain English so everybody can understand them. Because I think if we start momentum on pushing back on these provisions, eventually they'll, my hope is that we'll come up with something more in the middle.
And you've also got the Quit Getting Screwed podcast. So if anyone wants to tune into that, I'm guessing they can listen to that anywhere. They would listen to their podcast. Yeah, cool.
Yes.
It's interesting because I even at that point, I was thinking, working with builders, and I had the experience before and the revelation before where they weren't even builders; they were all just lawyers. They were just sitting in a side office, and they were just writing contracts and screwing contractors. And I mean, to be fair, that's not the case for all of them. And most of them are actually quite good in their defense, but like some of them are just charlatans.
Well, I agree completely. And here's the other thing is that most of them don't understand 100% what's in their contracts, right? If you go to a lawyer, their job is to protect your interests as best as possible. And they do that, and they write this one-sided contract, and they think that there's going to be a negotiation.
Yeah.
And so the other side's going to say, no, I'm not going to agree with this. And then we'll negotiate, and then we'll come up with the agreement. But what's happened in the construction industry is people are afraid that they're not going to get the work. So they don't want to rock the boat and try to negotiate the contract. And so these things have just gotten so one-sided. And so I'm trying to really, make a revolution, say, hey, I'm not going to agree to this, or you got to change this term. But instead of like closing your eyes and holding your nose and signing it and just hoping for the best, because a lot of the times that doesn't work out.
And I know I've been in that situation where the principal contractor or general contractor, as you call them, has been standing over me with the contract, going, here you go, sign there, like on a document this thick.
Exactly. You're like,
I'm like, is anyone actually stupid enough to do this without? Yeah, I'm like, there's not a chance in hell I'm signing this, champ. Like without reading it, getting someone who knows how to read it,
Exactly.
That was me at like 25 or something, Like, what a joke.
No, I know. And go ahead.
So I was going to say we're talking about a couple of things over in broken up in a couple of conversations here. The first one we're going to be talking about what should be in your contract.
Yes,
which is going to be very useful to a lot of the listeners out there. And then in the next podcast, we're going to be talking about treacherous contract terms, what to look out for when signing other people's contracts, blah, blah, blah. And I'm guessing in that contract, we're going to dive into what I just learned in your book about bonds and personal guarantees and that kind of carry on.
Correct. Correct. And so like the first one is what needs to be in your contract. So in the construction industry, you're either writing your own or signing someone else's. And here's the first thing I say. You have to have a contract. I don't care if it's a one page, something is better than nothing. And the other thing is that it doesn't have to be long and full of legalese to be effective.
Right.
And so you can have, for residential remodel, you can have a 7 or 8 page contract that covers everything and is easy to understand. And so, that's kind of the main two things is if you're signing someone else's, watch out for the pitfalls. And if you're drafting yours, have these few main things in it and just spell out the terms clearly.
Sure. Makes sense. Cool. We may as well dive into episode 1. Or actually, do you want to give us a little bit of background as to you? Like, I know you're a lawyer, but then you've grown up sort of within the trades with your hubby and that kind of thing. So maybe give us a bit about your story to let us understand how you got to where you are.
I grew up with people that build things, that get things done. And I didn't realize it at the time that this is all kind of, going to be where I ended up. But just being it with everyday people that needed to run small family businesses, they're trying to keep the doors open. They're trying to feed their family. And, I worked for a lot of them. My uncle was an irrigation contractor. I worked for him as one of my first jobs. My grandfather owned an excavation company that actually ended up going out of business because he didn't get paid on a big project. And to see their daily struggles on, the contracts they have to sign, what they need to do to collect their money, and how essential an attorney is to that process. And then I've, gone to law school and then started my own business in the construction industry with my husband, a material supply business. And again, never worked so hard in my entire life, and realized when you're starting something like that is that you work so hard, you put your whole life into it, and then it can be taken out at any time because of one contract. And so I've built my firm on the idea that if you call, you're going to get a phone, you're going to get an answer the same day. I'm here to help you. Let's help, read these contracts. Let's level the playing field so the people who are actually doing the work, actually building things, don't face all the risks. Because that's what these contracts do. They shift the risk down and down until the person at the very bottom is holding all the risk, and the one that's least financially able to handle it.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's what I'm trying to break these things down in plain English and let everybody know that don't just sign it because there's nothing in there that's good for you.
Yeah. So in the first episode, we're going to be talking about what is in your contracts. And this, I'm guessing, is going to be geared towards contractors that are required to draft their own contracts, which would essentially be anyone, right? I mean,
yeah.
Some contractors would even need contracts at times, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, and it depends. Like mostly the residential guys that are doing, remodels or whatever, or even building houses, usually have to draft their own contracts, and sometimes on commercial projects too. But usually in residential is where you see this. And so, and the main thing I can say with this is when you're drafting your own contract, just be clear and just be upfront, right? The contract is there to manage expectations, so there won't be a dispute at the end.
Yeah.
And if you're clear and upfront, whatever it is, just be honest. It will be less likely to become a dispute.
Well, I mean, you say that, but like the reality is, in a lot of situations, the contract's there to completely screw the other person, which is what I've picked up in your book. So I think from an ethical standpoint, yes, you're correct. Practically.
Well, that's what I'm trying to say is that in this situation, I'm not teaching you to put those things in. Right?
Yeah, sure.
I'm teaching you.
That's the other course.
Exactly.
It's the general contractors course you've got there.
How not to go that way. If you're going in and you're going to be hired by a homeowner to redo a roof, what work are you going to do? What work you're not going to do? What the schedule is?
Yeah.
What if there's changes in the work, and that's a big one on that. Is like a homeowner they hire you to do a job. They think you know everything, and so being upfront the fact that there could be things that happen down the line that I couldn't see, that we're going to have to charge extra for. And so just addressing those things up front, because not everybody's doing huge projects, commercial projects where they're going to sign somebody else's. A lot of guys are doing, everyday work for homeowners or smaller projects that they're not working through a GC. So,
oh, sure. And I mean, that example is almost a prophecy in the trades. I mean, especially if you're doing work on an existing structure, you're always going to come across. I mean, you don't know until you start pulling walls down and, ripping ceilings apart, what lies beneath. So
I know exactly. So like I was writing a contract today for a Texas roofer. That's why it's on my mind. But I put in there, although contractor is an experienced roofer, when the shingles come off, I don't know what's under there. And so If there's rotting, sheathing or whatever needs to be replaced, I'm going to come to you. I'm going to tell you what's going to cost, and we're going to agree on this before I move forward.
Yeah.
And so I find that helps tremendously, just being upfront with that.
Yeah, this is one of those things, isn't it, where like 99% of problems can be avoided and solved through communication. Exactly.
And so just being upfront, and it's like any relationship, the more upfront and honest you are, the better it will be.
And like I think that's something I've learned over the years, and it's not that I'm in the trades anymore per se, but just helping people understand the dynamic of what's happening and problems that can arise, and just laying those. And we teach our people to do this through content on their website, and FAQs and case study pages, and just talking about problems that have come up and just navigating obstacles before they potentially become an obstacle, kind of thing. And it works great. I mean, now we can literally send proposals out, not get any questions, because people all their questions are answered.
I agree, because you got to understand, especially for a homeowner, they have no idea the construction process or what's about to happen. But since they don't have no idea, the expectations they have in their mind are off compared to what's real, right? And so if you go in there before you start work and say, this is what's going to happen, how it's going to happen, and I think I can finish the schedule on this date. So like you need to have the general, so like, and if you're writing your own contract, you need to have the general info about the parties, a great description of the work. What I tell my clients too, is you're going to describe the work as if you were describing it to a jury, what you were hired to do, and better than anybody else what people might think is included that is not. So put those exclusions in there as well. The next important thing is the schedule. After that, say I'm going to start here. I plan to finish here. And I tell my guys, always go long, because if you finish early, you're the hero. If you're late, you're the bad guy.
Right.
So build in some extra time. The other thing I put in is a clause that says like things can happen that are outside of contractor's control, like
weather.
Lockdowns and
COVID,
weather, and now in the States at least material increases, price increases substantial, and so that if that happens, the contractor gets more time and or gets more money if the material costs go up.
Well, that's actually a good point. And what's happened in that situation? Because I know we've got loads of guys that are struggling to get materials because most of it's coming out of China, I guess. But they're already in contract, and all of a sudden their product prices double.
Yeah, and that's the issue, because unless the contract provides for them to be able to increase their price, which most of them don't, they're going to have to eat that cost.
Yeah, right.
Which is another thing that's not in the book that is really relevant right now. If you're signing somebody else's contract, write in that you a sliding provision like that says if what I put in, the ones I'm writing now, if the cost of material increases more than 5%, you get to recover that cost back.
Sure.
Because at the end of the day, if the owner's deciding to move forward with this project at this point in time, then they should have to shoulder the cost of that increased price.
Sure.
It shouldn't be.
And if they're reasonable, they will.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm just saying, if they wanted to cram it down, they could. And that's what. And the new thing on the street here is going to be that I heard is coming out is guaranteed maximum price contracts, which is trying to lock the contractors into honoring the price that they bid it at, regardless of any increases. So that's what I'm telling my clients to watch out for that too.
So that's coming from the homeowner, or that's coming from a general contractor?
Coming from the general.
Oh.
Yeah, that's coming from the general to lock it so he can make more money and pass the cost on when I've seen them. And don't be wrong, there could be a savvy enough owner out there to do that as well. I haven't seen that.
Yeah. I suppose they're trying to then, if the subcontractors up their prices and the general contractors got up their prices, and then they're locked in a contract. So it's.
Yeah, exactly. It flows downhill, right? So watch out for, especially now for those provisions, because I don't know if it's going to get worse or better, or everybody's saying it's going to get worse before it gets any better. So
I suppose it's one of those things where maybe as well, like many things throughout this pandemic, people are going to come out of it with a bit more experience, better processes, better contracts, better.
Exactly.
They're going to operate smoother. They're going to have less obstacles, so.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
I think we've all learned a lot from this situation, whether it's, some good, some bad, but definitely at least to slow down a little bit.
I mean, most contracts, in my experience, do have things like rain days, weather days. I've never seen one. I mean, mind you, I've been out of the game a long time now, but I've never seen one that has a global pandemic days.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the problem is a lot of things, the people that were in it when things shut down and legally there was no out for it. So, I see guys trying to get delay damages because they didn't have a workforce because everybody had to stay at home.
Right.
But those are real things that could happen because, and the other thing is that like leases are the same way. There's no provision in there if there's a lockdown that you don't have to pay your rent,
right.
As an operating business. So you're signed into contracts that as hard as they tried it and didn't think of all these things.
Yeah.
And so another good thing that needs to be in your contract, if you're going to write it, is what happens if there's changes in work. Like I said, if there's got to be increase in price, what happens?
Is that so we call variation, we have variations over here. I don't think you call it that, but basically when the client says, oh, actually, I don't want those taps, I want these taps, or I don't want that finish, I want this finish, or whatever it might be. Mm-hmm. Is that the same sort of
thing? And here they're called change orders, but same thing. Anything that's going to increase the price that was not already included in your work.
Sure.
And because here's the thing is that if you don't get the extra work in writing, you're not going to be entitled to charge for it.
Sure.
And I've seen a lot of people get burned by that one, and sometimes intentionally, sometimes not. Sometimes people are like, just do it and I'll give you a change order later. And of course, if that's the project manager, but then, he's fired or the superintendent didn't approve it. So your guys, we still did the work, but we didn't have assigned change orders. And now we're not entitled to be paid. I mean, even on residential jobs, I see this happen all the time.
We have this thing over here, and I don't know if you have it over there, but this again, going back, I'm not sure if it still runs, but they have like a design and construct proposal where you basically where you agree to this design and construct proposal. And essentially you're like, it makes you reliable and accountable for everything, including like design work and materials, variations. Oh, well, you didn't foresee that in your design, like all this kind of stuff.
That's crazy.
It is. It's insane. And so many people come unstuck with it.
Yeah, I can only imagine. That sounds pretty rough.
I mean within reason, obviously, if there's obviously like significant variations, then you can't really argue that. But for the better part, the whole point of it is just to lump it on the contractor and go, oh, sort it out. go build this building.
What I see a lot here is that a homeowner will upgrade whatever, the base price came with this grade of material, but we want this and it's going to cost a couple $1,000s extra. And if they don't get that in writing at that time, then they have to eat that couple $1,000s. And so it adds up at the end of the day too. Sure. But, and then speaking of that, another important provision to have very clearly spelled out is the payment terms. When is payment due? What, how much, if it's going to be paid in schedules, what does that look like? Because first off, you don't ask for payment, you're definitely not going to get paid. And so if you're upfront about when you're going to ask for payment and when it's expected to be received and what happens if you don't, right? I would also build in that says, if I don't receive payment within 10 days, I don't have to work anymore. Right. Because if you don't build that in, you don't necessarily have that right. So just being upfront about, here's how much it's going to cost. I need this much down. And either, if you're finished in a short time period, this much upon completion, or, milestone payments.
So I don't know if we're going to be covering this in this podcast or perhaps the next, or perhaps when we haven't put notes down to cover it at all. But I know one of the big issues here is like general contractors have got these ridiculous payment terms of like 90 days where they expect you to basically bankroll a project for a quarter of a year. Are we going to talk about that in any one?
Yeah. And actually, the pay when paid clause is kind of the same thing. So usually you just have 90, our contracts over here, the thing that they do, and that's in the next one, is that our subs don't get paid until the owner pays the general, and which our guys don't understand when they sign that contract. There could be tons of reasons that the owner doesn't pay the general that doesn't have anything to do with that. Right. And so they still don't get paid. And so I've seen guys have to bankroll the whole freaking contract amount while they're paying out labor and they're paying out material and there's legally nothing you can do. You can file a lien, but they're going to claim that, they don't have to pay you yet under the terms of the contract. So yes, that's a huge one.
Yeah. I feel like that's a constant battle and I also have heard from the inside as well that it's kind of a strategy to bankrupt small businesses so they can just move on to the next person and not have to worry about
paying them at all.
Yeah.
Because really, because what do you have to do then to get paid? You have to hire a lawyer, and most small businesses can't. Number one, they can't go without the money that they've already put out for the labor and materials, and then on top of it, they have to hire a lawyer to go collect it. I've seen in the past a lot of contractors take that strategy where they'll make them wait for 120 days because they can come in at 50% and pay them because they're so desperate for the money. They'll reduce their amount they owe to get something. It's a dirty, dirty business.
It is. It's terrible, isn't it? Like, what happened to the days where you could just, and I feel like it just, I don't know, maybe it's because I sort of came out of that residential world and I went into construction and went back into residential, but I was so oblivious to it all in the residential space because it was just there was so much it was just everyone was so happy to help each other and things were getting paid and everything was getting done, and then you work in this world is just full of builders who are not builders, they're all just lawyers, and it's contract this, contract that, and it was just a game of who can screw you, and everyone knew it. Everyone knew can you do this for me? Okay, how am I going to get screwed here? They're trying to do this because it was terrible.
No, I know, and then they wonder why we have a labor shortage.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, the ripple effect.
You know what I'm saying? If it's going to cost me to work for you, I'm better off collecting unemployment or sitting on the couch. We've kind of dug our own hole in that situation. I mean, if people can't make a living doing this and they're constantly being threatened to being put out of business, who the hell wants to do that?
What's the point? Yeah.
And that's too bad because I think the trades, building something is an honorable way to earn a living. And don't get me wrong, I'll be honest with you. I think lawyers messed it all up.
Totally.
They did, honestly. I'm trying to undo it, but it's just
too far gone.
It's just the truth. They came in and here's the thing is that you got to understand too, lawyers make more money if there's disputes. That why wouldn't they draft
Force it. Yeah.
things that would create disputes, or potentially things that would create disputes because nobody else can understand them.
Yeah.
Anyways,
So,
and then you go ahead.
so that was payment. Where did we leave off? Was it payments?
Payments, insurance, and indemnity. Another thing I just tell my clients here to have. Indemnity basically means if anything happens at the project that's your fault, you're going to have to pay for it. And that's what insurance is for. So I know that at least in the States, there are some great insurance companies that write specifically for contractors in the construction industry.
Well, we actually can't trade over here without insurance.
Really? That's good. Here it's not that way. And so
Any business can't trade without.
Really?
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing. Because you imagine that I have one right now. It's a roofing contractor, and he had an employee who called a subcontractor with a subcontract that fell off the roof and died. Well, my guy didn't carry the right kind of insurance, so he isn't covered. And so, but he tried to call him a subcontractor to push that burden down, but it didn't work. And so now he's, hiding assets, trying to figure out what company is going to start or do something different, because it's literally going to wipe his company out because he didn't have insurance.
Yeah, sure.
So,
we have one over here called public liability.
Mm-hmm.
And that's basically you've got to have that insurance to trade.
Gotcha. And then like here, you can get other things like if you're a painting contractor that would cover an accident if you accidentally oversprayed, or a whole bunch of different things. So there's just get great insurance. It's,
I should qualify actually. Public liability is there to cover the public.
Mm-hmm.
So if somebody falls and dies or whatever, or hurts themselves or breaks a leg, whatever, they're covered. Not necessarily you, but
whatever happens.
It's a good insurance.
Good. That's awesome that they require it. Another thing that needs to be in your contract is defaults, or what happens when one party is not following like they should. Like what happens if you don't get payment? And then for the owner, what happens if the contractor's not showing up and doing the work? Let's have that built in. Like I'll give you 48 hours notice. You got to come fix it, or I can fire you and hire somebody else, which is next termination. How do we do that? What does that look like? How much of a warning do I get? Because failing to follow anything in a contract is considered default. When you fire somebody because of that default, that's a termination. And so at that point, the relationship's over. And what happens at that point? And
does termination always come as a result of a default?
Yes.
Right.
In this type of contract. In what you have to watch out for in somebody else's contract is they may have a termination for convenience clause, which means they can terminate you for any reason or no reason at all.
Like, oh, it's too sunny today, you're out.
for this kind of information, it should be doom and gloom. But yeah, normally,
you'd think it. I mean, if you had smarts about you when you saw that contract with that clause in it, like that would be the world's biggest red flag, wouldn't it? You'd be like, I'm not working for this jerk.
Exactly, and because here's what happens, and is that they'll sign the contract, they'll get ready to go, and then all of a sudden they'll terminate you for convenience because they found somebody to do it cheaper, and nothing you can do, right? Yeah. And people sign this stuff all the time, and it is in almost every contract that I read for somebody else, and it's like, yeah, if all the provisions I was going to fight over, I don't know if I'd fight over that one.
I like what you said in your book, though. I think I read it last night, and it was saying, I can't remember how you put it, but like people just put all these terms in there. Like essentially the contracts are negotiation. So they just lump everything in there, expecting you to not pick up on things. But if you do, then that's fine. They can remove things bit by bit. I can't remember what you called it. But yeah, I found that quite interesting. Well, I think a lot of people don't realize that a contract is a negotiation. A negotiable.
Like I think in the book, I call it's like paying sticker price for a new car. Right. Nobody goes to the car dealership expecting to pay sticker. It's a negotiation. And this is the same way. And if you point out some of these things that are in the on the one side and on the contract and say, hey, I can't sign this contract and, think I'm going to successfully run a business. I can't take that risk. And here's why. Most of the times they'll work with you. At least that's what I've seen. If you point it out from that perspective. And I'm not saying everybody, but there comes a point where there's like so much in here. You'll be like, I'm going to let some other schmuck sign this because it's just not worth it to me.
The thing is too, isn't it? I mean, at that point, you've put in so much work, you could have spent weeks putting your bid together, your proposal,
Yeah, exactly. I know.
It's finally, I've been given the contract. Yay, it's mine. You just go sign. Obviously, it's written based off exactly what I put in my proposal, which is potentially unlikely.
Yeah, highly unlikely, and that's another part where people lose a lot of money too. They don't look at what they're actually hired to do. They think they're hired to do their bid, which is definitely not the
I found that interesting how you were saying that your bid does not form any part of the contract.
It's not even in there. So like, as a client comes to me and like, well, I didn't bid that. I'm like, you have to understand that's not even part of your agreement.
Right.
Throw it out the window. It doesn't mean anything anymore. You're hired what's to do in that contract. And if it's not the same as your bid, and now you're doing, so much more work, the consequences of not doing are more painful than the consequences of doing it.
Yeah. And I wonder if like people are sort of they think if I keep asking for these things to be removed, they're just going to give it to someone else.
See, and that's what my clients ask me all the time. And I'm like, I'll tell you what the risk is, and then you got to make the decision whether you're going to go for it. And you got to make the decision as the business owner. And really, if you've worked with somebody for a long time and you've had this contract and it really hasn't been an issue, you're probably not a big deal, right? Because like I said, most of these guys don't understand what's in their contract until something goes wrong, and then an attorney's like, oh, look, you can do this, and you can do this, and you can do this.
Right.
And do all these horrible things. I don't think most of them go in with the intention that they're going to use these horrible provisions against you. But if they want to, they can.
Right.
Here's the thing. In your contract that you're writing, I highly recommend that you put in mediation before you do any kind of court action.
What's mediation?
It's where the parties come together with an independent third party and try to settle it.
Right.
So one side, and it doesn't end in a decision. If you don't settle, you go on to fight your day in court or whatever, but you get a chance you're forced to listen to the other side, because each side gets a time to tell their story and really hear what they're saying if you haven't before. And
so that person or the third party in there, who is that?
Just an independent third party that mediates. That's what they do for a living.
Oh, they're a mediator. That's their job.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And they're trained. You don't have to be a trained mediator to do it, but they're trained in trying to solve problems and negotiations.
Sure.
And so basically you're looking at the other side's holes, you're looking at your case, the possibility of what does this look like. And sometimes for the first time, because they didn't have well-written contracts or a good communication, you're actually hearing what the other side has to say. And you're like, oh, maybe I could do this, or and before we go off and spend all this money trying to have somebody else decide this dispute, let's do that. And so, here in the States, if you don't settle in mediation, then you can either go to the courtroom or you can do arbitration. You guys have arbitration over there?
Maybe. I don't know anything about this stuff.
Gotcha.
What is that?
It's like, because the court systems are so backed up, and because the judges here aren't specialized in like construction law, they just handle all law. You can get an arbitrator, which is normally a lawyer in the construction industry that knows about how construction contracts work and knows about all these things that you agree that they're going to decide your dispute. And then that is a binding agreement.
Right. Okay.
And here it's a hell of a lot faster.
So they represent you?
No, you have an attorney on each side representing each party. And then this arbitrator acts as a judge.
Oh,
it's just a private judge. Basically, you got to pay him because that's the downside of arbitration is expensive. You got to split their hourly rate, and then but it is, especially right now, our court system is so backed up.
Sure.
You could arbitrate a case in 6 months, as opposed to go to the court system right now. It's like 2 years to get a trial date.
Right.
So, I know 6 months sounds long, but 2 years is definitely worse. So, but having up front, this is the processes we're going to take. This is who's going to decide the dispute is essential, I think. Mm-hmm. And then quality of work and warranty. Obviously, you're going to agree you're going to do a good job with quality materials, but what does the warranty look like? Is it 1 year? Or, just be upfront. And here's the other thing I put in there: if you're not paid in full, you don't have to honor any warranty claims, because that's not fair either. Mm-hmm. But if you want that to be the case, you got to put it in writing. So be upfront about what the warranty covers, what it doesn't cover. And I also tell my clients in there to put in a process, like if you disagree that it's actually warranty work and it's regular wear and tear, or the something happened, it wasn't taken care of, and it's not covered by warranty. So build something in there like that. Another provision in these type of contracts is that the owner of the property won't hire your workers. I think that's important, because I've seen it in the past where they'll hire the workers and then fire the guy, and he's out the money. So
they hire the subcontractors' staff?
Yes.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Because I think they can get it done for cheaper, or for some reason they don't like working direct. What happens is, like, if you have a bigger company, the contractor that signed the contract, isn't the one they're out there doing the work. His project manager is, and they see what a good job this project manager does. I'm going to try to get him to do it maybe for cheaper indirectly. So I always put something in there. And then I also put something in about what happens if the attorney's fees are incurred. Whoever wins has to pay attorney's fees, or, attorney's fees for collection.
What's the difference between a lawyer and an attorney?
Same thing. Just different words for the same thing. Interchangeable.
Right.
And then the last thing that I usually close my contracts with is that this is the complete agreement. What that means is that if you said anything that contradicts the contract, it can't be used. So yes, I have this contract, but he told me something that's opposite in the contract is not evidence and won't be allowed in. So that way everybody knows what the agreement's in, it's in writing and it's clear. And so those are really the main provisions of a contract. And they don't have to be anything fancy. Just like I'm explaining something to you in plain English, that would be more than enough to have a very good and understandable contract.
Interesting. So in this instance, is it typically like if we're creating these, so if you're working for a general contractor or a principal contractor or whatever, they've got these huge contracts. Really, the best way to go about it is to get someone who knows these things, right, to read through them.
Correct. And actually, in June, the Subcontractor Institute that has all those free resources actually launching a review my construction contract where you upload it and you pay per page to have it reviewed. And it starts at $150. I think that's 0 to 5 pages.
Right.
And that's a 5-day turnaround. And I think you can expedite it for 2 days, and it costs more. And basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through that contract, find all these provisions, point them out to you, tell you what they mean. And then of course, you can go back and negotiate. You can decide what risk you're going to take, what you're not going to take, but at least you know what you're signing. I think that helps so tremendously.
Sure.
And gives you a peace of mind, what's in there, and then you can decide. And honestly, I think if enough people will do this, and push back, we can change this. We can have enough influence that if nobody's going to sign the contract, they need people to do work. They're going to have to change the contract.
I mean, I guess the problem is it's like most things relating to business. As a tradesperson, you aren't taught any of this stuff at technical college. You're not taught about contracts. You're not taught about marketing. You're not taught about finances, none of it. So you could be the best carpenter or insert trade in the world. And if you don't understand these things, you can get screwed in business. You see it all the time.
No, I agree. And that's so sad because you really get into the thing that you love to do, right? You're really good at it. You think you could do such a good job. And then you don't realize that, yes, that's what you're going to do, but you're really going to spend most of your time running your business.
Yeah.
And nobody teaches you how to do that, right? They didn't teach me how to run a business in law school. I had to learn the hard way too. And
exactly.
Even people with MBAs, nothing compares to the actual experience of running a business. And don't be wrong, you're going to screw up and you're going to mess up and you're going to learn. And so part of this is making sure that people don't have to learn the hard way like we did, You got
to read this book. It's called The Personal MBA.
Okay, I'd write that down.
Really, all your listeners out there, go and get a copy of The Personal MBA. I'll put a link to it in the show notes. Master the art of it. It's absolutely one of the best books I've ever read. And they talk about not judging a book by its cover. I judged the shit out of this book before I read it, and I was like, this is going to be crap. And it was amazing. And
really?
It's like you just said, like you can go and educate yourself with this, $100,000 plus MBA, or you can actually get out in the real world. And he argues you can get just as good an education from reading a handful of books as you could as go through.
On that front, I agree with him most definitely. And because a lot of the people that run MBA programs have never actually run a business. And you don't know what you don't know until you're in it, right? You don't know that you need to know how to be a leader, and you don't know that you have to be clear with your employees. And unfortunately, like I said, we're trying to teach people this so they don't have to learn it the hard way like we did. Yeah, no,
it's definitely. I mean, and I say that all the time to people whenever we hire people. Like, gone are the days where you'd hire somebody. I mean, of course, there are situations where you need to have a law degree, you need to have, a plumber's license, so on and so forth. But gone are the days where, I would hire a marketing person in my business because they have a marketing degree. Like, forget it. I couldn't care less. Like, show me what you can do. Like,
Exactly. Oh my God. Talk about marketing. I went through so many marketing people that had marketing degrees and marketing experience. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
then again, I didn't know what I didn't know. And it was, a painful experience.
But I mean, it's the same. It's the same with so many things, like there's so many industries out there where and I think this is one thing that the growing trend of entrepreneurship is proving that, and probably making the universities and colleges sweat a little bit, is that, there are people out there that are not valuing these education programs anymore because they know they can get a better experience out there themselves.
I agree. And there's so many coaching options, and there's so much information out there available for free.
Sure, and we're kind of preaching to the choir here because obviously anyone that's listening to a podcast is pretty keen to learn, and it's these guys that are out there that are doing these things. Like, there's a handful of people that'll listen to this, and probably only a handful, but they'll go and they'll reach out to you, or they'll reach out to some one of the contacts that we've had on our show over here in Australia, who's a contracts lawyer, and they'll get these things under wraps, and they're the ones that won't get screwed.
Exactly. And that's the thing, is just, you don't know if somebody doesn't tell you, if you don't learn the hard way. And so let's get it out there that these things are dangerous. Have one that, have somebody that understands them and read it and tell you what it means. And so, like, the things to watch out when you sign somebody else's, we kind of hit on this already: bid versus scope. Your bid doesn't become part of the contract. And so what I tell my clients is read that scope as if it were a new bid and make sure it matches.
Sure.
Because, like I said, I hear all the time, I was hired to do my bid. And sometimes you are, if they sign your proposal, but mostly that's not the way it goes.
Mm-hmm. So in the next episode, we're going to come back and we're going to talk about treacherous contract terms, what to look out for. Mm-hmm. I guess this is where it's going to get real ugly and exciting.
Yeah. And this is, like I said, this is the place where you never expect these things to be in there. So we got bid versus scope. And then, okay, so this is an interesting thing that I would never imagine, or anybody would ever imagine would be.
Well, let's not dive into the next episode because we'll talk about that. We'll leave that as a bit of a cliffhanger for all you guys. But I would say definitely, guys, if this has been of interest to you, go and do your research. Go and head across to the CromeensLawFirm.com. There'll be links to this in the show notes. Go check it out if you're in the US. And then I'll also put some links in there to some contacts you can speak to if you're over here in Australia. But do your research on these things. Go read the book. It's like $5. I just checked on Amazon. And I'll put a link to it. Quick Getting Screwed. It's a quick read. You'll blast through it in a few nights. And you've also got do you have some sort of course there you wanted to talk about?
The Subcontractor Institute. That's where it's free. It's free information.
Okay, I'll put some links to it. I think you put it in the.
I think I just updated the show notes. It has the links to the firm and everything.
I'll put some links to that in the show notes as well, guys. So head across to the siteshed.com, find this episode, and you'll be able to get access to all those things, including the book links. All right, cool. Well, Karalynn, let's wrap this one up. We're going to come back in part 2, and we're going to, as I said, have a chat about treacherous contract terms. So is there anything you want to close on, or is that?
No, just thank you so much for having me, and that contracts don't have to be complicated to be effective.
Right.
But you definitely need one.
All right, listeners, that's a wrap. Thank you for listening to another episode of Toolbox Talks. If you're liking what you hear, then you can head across to the siteshed.com, where you can join our community by signing up to our Toolbox Talks. You'll get sent a weekly notification, which is basically a highlight of everything that we've spoken about during that week, along with any other industry news that may be relevant or specific to the trades. If you're enjoying the show, you can head across to iTunes, Stitcher, or SoundCloud, where you can leave us a review. That would be fantastic, and all the reviews get read out in the show. Likewise, if you have any friends or colleagues that you think would benefit from the show and the episodes that we create, then please go ahead and share it with them.